Well, hey, what's going on? Nick Kirby here. Welcome into a special edition today of Chatterbox Reds, proudly sponsored, as always, by Deep South Commodities. Just me solo here today, going to talk about the Reds interested in two players, some interesting news that was reported on Thursday night, and then also going to talk about the big Milwaukee Brewers trade. Before we get to that, as always, it is a new year and a good time to make your life easier by getting some premium meats and other great foods delivered right to your door with Omaha Steaks, just like I do. Everything with Omaha Steaks is just packaged perfectly. Fits really well into a tight fridge, tight freezer. If you're like me, always with a lot of kids having challenges finding space in the fridge and freezer. The way that Omaha packages everything makes it very convenient for that. I know my typical co-host here, Craig, he loves the pre-portioned meals that they have. They're called those easy anytime meals. But one thing we haven't talked a lot about is they have a lot of things other than just steaks and burgers. They have salmon, lobster, ribs, pot roast, ham, chicken tenders, pork chops. They even have some wines on the site. So really check it out. Everything's shipped directly to you. Very easy and convenient. Something for everyone there. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door here in 2026. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an extra $35 off on top of their already great deals, use the promo code CHATTER at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code CHATTER. Terms apply. See site for details. That is actually a new code. We had Chatterbox before. It's just CHATTER, now CHATTER. All right, well, let's jump into it today. The Brewers, they trade Freddy Peralta to the New York Mets, something that was kind of speculated all offseason. It was reported that the Dodgers were a team interested in him, I think, about last week. And we're like, oh, really? They're going to get Freddy Peralta too? Ends up being the Mets. The Mets kind of had a very aggressive end of the offseason so far. They were getting a lot of complaints. They're not doing anything. Well, they signed Bo Bichette. They trade for Luis Robert. And now they trade for Freddy Peralta. The Brewers get back two top 50 prospects in Brandon Sproat and shortstop Jet Williams. You might remember Sproat made his big league debut against the Reds back on September 7th. Took a no-hitter into the 6th inning, but the Reds did put up 3 runs on him and actually won that game. Very talented, throws 6 pitches, has a really nasty sweeper. So, yes, he's not Freddy Peralta right now, but he is a top 50 prospect for a reason, and the Brewers tend to do pretty well with those type of pitchers. The other player very interesting is Jet Williams. Spent most of 2025 at AA, but finished the year at AAA. Had a 156 WRC plus at AA, 10 home runs and 32 stolen bases in 96 games. Shortstop is his natural position, but the Brewers, their top 4 prospects are all shortstops. Seems like the Brewers might go with the whole draft a bunch of shortstops and figure it out. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they end up doing with Jet Williams. He's close to big league ready. Probably won't be on the opening day roster, but he probably would appear, you would think, in 2026 for the Brewers. There's also read some talk about, the Brewers, they have Jackson Churio and they have Sal Frelick in the outfield, but they don't really have a true center fielder. One of these shortstops could be the guy that ends up being that center fielder. So we'll see kind of how that shakes out. But this is just what the Brewers do. This is what they do. They just keep the machine rolling. It's incredible what they've done. I've seen a lot of takes about this, and like, this is how the Brewers compete with teams like the Dodgers. Yes, they got swept by them, but they also, one year, remember, they were a game away from the World Series. So I think I heard some stuff like, well, this model, you can't win a World Series with it. Maybe you just haven't won a World Series yet. I, for one, would love to just keep getting put in the chances the Brewers are getting. And then if I get to if I get to 7 out of 8 years, which I think is what the Brewers have made the playoffs and don't have a World Series or a World Series appearance to show for it, then I'll complain about that. But we're so far away from complaining about that I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But this is what the Brewers do. This is probably my biggest criticism right now with the Reds, that the Reds just don't make these difficult trades like this. They only make the trades that they kind of feel like they have to make. And I don't know who's really responsible for that. My guess is it's more of an ownership thing. I think that Nick Kroll and Brad Meter probably would like to be a little more aggressive like the Brewers are in these situations. But we've heard in the past, there was the whole All-Star game, and ownership wouldn't let them trade players before the All-Star game and got lackluster returns because they waited too long for guys like Jay Bruce and Johnny Cueto. So, yeah, I think the Reds should be aggressive. And you don't have to always. I'm not saying you have to always trade players in their last year or second to last year before they become a free agent. The Brewers don't always do it. They had Willie Adames. They ran him out and got a draft pick for him. But you should be willing to do it and capitalize on this because this is probably a trade that will keep that Brewers machine going. Again, I think the Reds have a good team and they have a really good foundation. I just think in order to be a really sustainable team that is anything close to what the Brewers do, you have to make these types of trades, and I would like to see the Reds be willing to do that. But I will say the longer this goes on, the more that it feels like in some ways the Reds have sort of conceded, well, we're not going to re-sign Elly De La Cruz. We're going to kind of go all in as we're allowed to go with our payroll while we have Elly De La Cruz, and we'll figure out after. I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, I don't know. You keep pushing off sustainability. You keep going through these long, nasty rebuilds. And while, yeah, I know a lot of people aren't happy right now with the Reds' current state of things, going into a season where you're projected to be an above 500 team is a hell of a lot better than going into a season where you're projected to, win in the 60s. So we shall see. Now, the Brewers, they are down with their over and under to 83.5 to 85.5 wins, depending on where you're looking. They actually opened at 87.5. So this has definitely knocked them down in 2026. Hard to see how the Brewers are better, but I don't want to challenge the baseball gods on that because we've seen it before. Brewers also traded Tobias Harris in this deal as well. I didn't mention another talented pitcher that was really good against the Reds last year that they got from absolutely nothing picked up. And they end up having him be a piece of something that gets top 50 prospects back in return. Reds also, though, are down to 81.5 to 82.5, depending on where you're looking, open to 83.5. So I guess the Reds have sort of closed the gap by about a game in terms of the betting odds. But we shall see. I think the Brewers are going to continue to be good. But this definitely does hurt them in 2026. Freddy Peralta is a really, really good pitcher. Man, just please, it's one of these years feels like the Brewers kind of rolling the dice with a lot of unproven pitchers. It's got to bite them at some point. Maybe, please, baseball gods, let it be 2026. All right, the other interesting piece of news we'll talk about here in just a second, but first, quick word from our other sponsors, Deep South Commodities and 988. Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day, and DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right, well, some interesting news got reported on Thursday evening from The Athletic. The Reds are interested in Eugenio Suarez and Austin Hayes. That coming according to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. But there's a very interesting caveat after that was written. It says, but the Reds feel they are not in a position to move forward until they gain more clarity on their long-term local TV outlook. So the Reds, they're interested in Suarez and Hayes, but they're not willing to really engage, I guess, in any serious contract negotiations until they have a better understanding of the TV outlook. So we've talked about it a lot, but I'll kind of recap it real quick. The latest with the TV saga, FanDuel Sports Network, their parent company, Main Street Sports Group canceled their deals with all their MLB teams earlier in January. They have apparently made revised deals to those clubs, but that is contingent on Main Street being able to find a buyer for the sports network. So a lot of moving pieces. FanDuel Sports Network had a booth, I guess, at Reds Fest. So I'm assuming maybe the Reds think there's some sort of hope there. The Reds would prefer to stick with the local cable provider. We've talked about this before. FanDuel, whatever they call it, it kind of would be the same thing, I would think, because that pays more money than getting your games produced by MLB. Now, having said that, you're going to probably end up there anyways. It seems like every team is destined to end up that way. It'll be better for the fans, I think, to be able to have the access of MLB, the MLB app, the convenience, kind of the unity across baseball, I think would be good. But for right now, where the Reds are at, they want to make as much money as possible. And I think we as fans should probably want them to make as much money as possible, because it's not all going to go into players, but certainly some of it will. So we'll see how that works out. There's no really idea of how long that's going to take. You would think they're not going to want this to get into spring training, because they usually broadcast some games during spring training. But could we not have a TV deal going into spring training and have those spring training games on TV? I guess that's possible. I'm guessing they try to get this resolved pretty soon. I guess it's a positive, before we talk about these individual players, I guess it's a positive that there might still be more money. I kind of, like a lot of other people, thought they probably maxed it out. You're kind of looking at where their payroll was at. I think I saw close to $140 million. So I kind of thought they were done unless they traded and moved guys around, moved salary around. But at least there's a potential for them not, and I use that very cautiously. But we shall see. Now, obviously, does this mean they need part of this money, plus they need to move someone else to create more money for one of these players? I don't know if that's the answer. There was nothing about that in the report. Personally, I'll start with this. Everyone wants to trade Brady Singer. I've made it very clear. I don't think that's a good idea. For Suarez, maybe it's such a gamble. It would be a big gamble. I know people are saying, well, it's a gamble to roll without adding an improvement to your lineup. Yes, but it's also a big gamble to roll with trading your most proven starter in terms of durability. So I don't know how big of a net positive that is. But let's talk about the two individual players, and we'll kind of wrap it up with that. So first off, Eugenio Suarez. What's the positives? Well, the guy hit 49 home runs last year. The Reds didn't hit a whole lot of home runs. That's a pretty big positive. He loves Cincinnati. He still said glowing things about Cincinnati during his visit in 2025. Suarez is a very likable player. I don't think he would bring the Kyle Schwarber good vibes to Cincinnati that would have come, and the excitement, but he would certainly bring some. He would certainly get a lot of people optimistic. Maybe not everyone, but there'd be a lot of people really getting optimistic. So that certainly would be nice. And I know the Reds would like that aspect of it. A lot of the metrics didn't really love Suarez last year. He only had a .298 on-base percentage. His expected weighted on-base average, that's ex-WOBA, everyone's favorite stat who hates advanced metrics, was actually below average, which is almost crazy for me to believe. A guy that was one home run shy of 50 home runs had a below average expected stats. So there are some questions there. -6 outs above average at third base. Looks like he's really starting to decline defensively. Did actually play 6 innings at first base for the first time in his career. 3 games. They were all, I don't think, a defensive replacement, but he got moved there. He did not start any of those games. So Eugenio Suarez, a complicated player. 34 years old. The years would be the biggest thing about this. Obviously, I don't think you want to be going 4 or 5 years with Suarez, and I don't think he's going to get that. Would Suarez make the Reds better in 2026? Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's a perfect player. I think there's a lot of concerning signs with him with his age and like that sub 300 on base percentage. But if you would just be adding him for money and not having to trade Brady Singer to get there or trading Tyler Stevenson to get there, yeah, you know what? I think I can get on board with it and roll the dice, even if it ends up being another Candelario. Just that kind of power is just, it's hard. I wouldn't want to get Suarez and the result of it be South Stewart ends up in AAA or playing 3 times a week. I don't think that's a positive. But if you were creative with Suarez, you bring him in, he's pretty much your DH. And I think that's a big piece of it. The metrics just aren't there at third base. Reds just traded for Brian Hayes. I don't even think, even if they didn't have Brian Hayes, I don't think you'd want to stick Suarez at third base every day. But maybe he's a primary DH, gets an occasional start at third base. Maybe, a Hunter Green, Chase Burns day where you're expecting a lot of strikeouts. He gives Ke'Bryan a day off. That helps Ke'Bryan stay healthy for a full year, as that's been an issue with Brian Hayes. So he gets to stay fresh. But he primary is the DH. Maybe he learns first base, but I don't think it would be a big deal because I think you have South Stewart and Spencer Steer who both can play first base and CES if he figures it out. So, yeah, I think it would work. Again, you wouldn't want to go too many years. The years would be the biggest concern. I don't care how much they pay him in 2026. But if they're paying him a lot into 2027, into 2028, and then you have to kind of figure out how you're going to manipulate that, that's where it would get a little dicey for me. But the perfect world, you get Suarez, you make him the DH, you make South Stewart the primary first base, Spencer Steer becomes more of a utility platoon player, Steer platoons in left field with Benson or Blade, whoever outplays that in spring training. And then, man, if you could get TJ Friedel to platoon with Dane Myers, I think you could have a pretty decent lineup. I really do. And we'll talk more about that with Austin Hayes as to why I'm skeptical of actually that plan being able to get executed. So Austin Hayes, the next player. Obviously, Austin Hayes was a great signing for the Reds in 2025, $5 million. Was an above-average hitter. Certainly fit a big need for the Reds. The biggest thing with Hayes is just the splits. He has a career 717 OPS against right-handed pitching with 708 in 2025. Career is 819 against lefties, 949 in 2025. So he still mashes against lefties, which would be a big advantage. The thing for me with Hayes is just how is he used? If Hayes is coming in, he's going to start every day in left field. I can't get on board with that. I think you have Benson, you have Blade. I just think they have far more upside against right-handed pitching. Benson's certainly a better defender out in left field. And Hayes was hurt all the time. So, but I am skeptical that Tito could actually do it because he had Hayes batting fourth, which was fine against left-handed pitching. But I don't think he's good enough against right-handed pitching that he's worth, spending whatever dollars you have left if you're playing him every day. But again, if you could get him and Tito could get on board with Hayes and a Benson or Blade, whichever one of those two plays better platoon in left, you have a Friedel Myers platoon in center. I think that's a pretty creative way to have some pretty decent platoon lineups where 1 through 9, as long as Jose Trevino's not playing, you're pretty competitive top to bottom. Obviously, Brian Hayes is probably not there, but he adds so much value defensively. But I think that's pretty decent. So, but again, it's hard for me to buy that Hayes could be used in that way. And I would love to give Tito the benefit of the doubt. I'd love for him to prove me wrong on that. And if he did this deal, but that's where I would kind of be a little bit skeptical. But obviously, it depends how the money shakes out with this TV deal when that gets done. We'll wait and see on that. And as always, we'll keep you posted here on Chatterbox Reds. I'm actually taking a week of vacation next week. Trying to reset here before spring training gets started. Less than a month away as you're listening to this right now. Spring training games, not just spring training. Pitchers and catchers report in a couple weeks. We're less than a month away from spring training games. We are going to continue, Lord willing, to try to every single day have a podcast audio version up for you. recap at every single spring training game like we've done. We did in 2023, 2024, and 2025. So we're going to continue to get that rolling. We'll try to also, during spring training, have more video content up on YouTube when we do interviews and stuff. So we'll try to have video content just about every day, Monday through Friday, audio podcast every single day during spring training and leading us up to the regular season. So appreciate everyone listening. Really do. Thank you so much, everyone who listens and watches the show. It really means a lot to me. Appreciate that, and we'll roll in here into 2026, and I'm excited. I can't wait for baseball season to get started and kind of see where this team's at and see if who's right, who's wrong, and everything else in between. Lots of other content here on Chatterbox Sports. Chatterbox Bearcats. UC has a big game on Saturday. They'll be live after that game. Of course, Off the Bench and the Stone Shield Show, 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. The Stone Shield Show actually has Clay Snowden, friend of the program, good friend of mine, is going to be on the Stone Shield Show on Friday morning, so be sure to check that out. I might put that in your Chatterbox Reds podcast feed as well for you next week. So, again, appreciate everyone tuning in. If you are watching on YouTube, please like the video. If you haven't subscribed to Chatterbox Reds or ever listen to this podcast, make sure you do that right now. We could really use a 5-star review. We haven't got a 5-star review since like October of last year. So if you're one that's held out, we could appreciate that. That kind of stuff really does help move the metrics. All right. We'll have a fantastic weekend. And as always, and most importantly, go Reds.